So, is there a difference between face characters and fur characters when you're training and working with them? A little bit. So, my last video that talked about learning how to work with the characters and the training process and what it was like stirred up a pretty consistent question among the feedback that I got. And that was there different training for face versus fur characters? So I thought I'd go back and kind of look at the training again and revisit that particular question. Now, if you don't know the difference, a fur character is one of the ones that has usually a bigger head, their face is completely covered, and they don't talk. So Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Pluto, Donald, Daisy, those are all examples of fur characters. They've got fur on their skin and stuff like that. A face character is a character that actually can talk to you, and you actually see their real face. Yes, there's makeup on and things like that, but generally you see their real face and they can talk. So all of the princesses, for example, are face characters. So that's the basic difference between the two. So what's it look like when it comes to training? Well, in training, we worked with only the fur characters, generally because they were the ones that would have the biggest challenges. We needed to be able to identify their needs, help them with costumes, if they're gesturing to us to be able to understand, and how to communicate with them, because they can't talk when they're out in front of the guests. A face character, if they need something, they can tell you, oh goodness, my shoe seems to have come a little bit misadjusted. Let me fix that. So you can talk to a face character, they can talk to you, they can let you know if there's a problem. So if they've got a problem, if they're a little concerned about somebody in line, the face character can actually look at the line and go, oh me, oh my, they look really, really excited. Don't forget to take your time. And they can tell the guest. Whereas a fur character can't do that. So there is another level of communication that a face character has that a fur character doesn't. So that means really we didn't need extra training or different training with face characters because they would fill in the gap and cover it. Fur characters meant a little bit more work, so that's what we focused on in training. And then you come in with a face character and it's like, oh, this is a little bit easier because they can do a bunch of it. So I hope that helps explain the difference in training and why we did not train with face characters at all. We just trained with the furs. We then took that training that we had gotten with the fur characters and we applied it to working with the face characters, because as far as the process, the whole meet and greet, I had mentioned PASS in the last video, which is PASS became the acronym that stood for the meet and greet process. And what it stood for, if I remember right, was presentation, that's your meeting between the character and the guest. Activity, which is where they take a moment and they play, they may dance around, they'll shake hands. There's something that they will do to help make that activity connect. A signature, which is the autograph session part, and then snapshot. So present, activity, signature, snapshot. That's PASS. And that basically takes a typical character meet and greet with a guest and sums it up in 4 steps and tries to make it consistent so that way you knew which order and what to look for. So they knew what to expect, so you knew what to expect, and the guests, as they learned, they would learn what to expect. And we would even explain to the guests, hey, by the way, have your autograph books out. They're going to say hi and they're going to play a little bit first, but then your autograph book will be ready. So we could briefly explain to the guests and it would be ready. So a fur character, we would explain that. A face character could tell the guests themselves. So it made it easier, smoother. The face character, like I said, they really kind of stepped up. And in fact, a lot of times with face characters, because they could communicate, because they could talk, it was not unusual if they only had one attendant for that attendant to basically work the back of the line instead of the front, because they didn't have to provide an extra voice and guidance. Between the photographer and the face character, there was plenty of guidance up front, and it was like too many cooks. This was normal, say, when I worked with Mulan, who I worked with a lot. Mulan was a face character. Mulan would basically run the front of her line and run the meet and greets. I would capture the moments, occasionally prep the guests at the front of the line, and the attendant would go work the end. Close it off, let people know how long the wait was, and so forth. And the attendant was at one end, I was at the other, and Mulan, because she could talk, would do a lot. Made it easy. So the training that we used wasn't as important there. At the same time, though, we still had to make sure that we were going smooth and keeping the line flowing. So face characters were easy. Face characters were fun that way. And depending upon where you worked, you might even have less to do. For example, if you're working Toontown and you've got a face character and you're the second or third character in the room, all you're doing pretty much is taking pictures, because the guests are coming straight from the character right in front. They're stepping over to you. They may hand you the Photopass card if they've got one. Now it's the magic bands. And they just step right up, and all you do is you just shoot, scan, hand it off. That was it. It made it really, really easy. And it actually made it easier to get the pictures, because you weren't having to watch the guest. You weren't having to guide the lines. You weren't having to deal with all of the other stuff. It actually made it easier to step up and try and get some good candidates, because there wasn't having to run the line and take care of other things like that. A lot of what you still had to watch for was the same. Now, there was an addition with the face characters that we had to watch for, especially the princesses. Jasmine and Ariel, probably the worst, but all of the princesses, you had to watch out for mostly guys, older guys, that thought, oh, hey, they're girls, their characters are single, they may be available. And we would have guys try to hand them hotel keys. We would have guys try to hand them their phone number or ask them out. I had a few guys that I would catch them in line, and I got in the habit of listening to my line. Interacting with the guests, but I kept an ear turned to the line all the time, especially when I would see men coming up in line. Most men were great, okay? Don't get me wrong. The vast majority of men, 99.9%, were awesome. But when you are meeting 1,000 people, a couple thousand people a day, that 1% turns into 2 or 3 people a day. And it just... So if I would hear it in line, I would tell them, hey, folks, the princesses are not available after work. They're here to meet you now. They all have their princes, so none of them are single, none of them are available. And if you are here to meet them that way, you may step out. And I did actually kick a couple people out of line, but I also kept a very close eye. If I had any suspicion, I would look at the person in the eye as they walked up and just kind of go, okay, have fun, keep it right, keep it appropriate, don't make me protect my princess. I really, especially with the princesses, I joked with them that just to let you know, I will be in dad mode, and I will be watching over you, because I know how some of these people are. And most of the time they appreciated that. There was Mulan, I would step back. I got to know the Mulan fairly well. And she was a little different. She liked to handle it herself. Okay. And Mulan didn't have as much because of the type of outfit that she wore. But most of the princesses, they appreciated when I was watching and keeping an eye out. And I had a couple times I would tell the guys, especially when they come up with families. Yes, guys, dads would do this in front of their wives and kids. Hello? Really? But I would always, whether they're inappropriate or not, I always put kids in between the princess and the dad. Always. No exceptions, just to give that extra space to help remove temptation from dad for patting a little bit. Just a habit I got into. I don't know that all photographers even thought about that, but yeah, I was not always a nice guy, and so that was something I did just to help protect the princess, help make sure that we had fewer incidents. Um, and it translates even when I take a picture myself with the princess. I try to be very careful, try to make sure I'm very appropriate, keep spacing. Um, so it's just something that you have to watch out for because there's a lot of guys that don't care. Um, Thankfully, like I said, I didn't see it that often, but I like to think too it was because there's just something about having the presence of a guy there that other guys will think twice about it, especially when the guy projects a little bit. When I was working with the characters, I really did not want to take away from the character. I did not want to become a center of attention or focus because they were there to meet the character. But at the same time, I also, especially if I had any suspicions about the people in line, I tried to project a little bit of authority and I could speak differently. For example, that is the character we're going to approach them properly. Make sure you have your things ready. Make sure they are arranged. Make sure that we don't have any issues as we go up there because we want everybody to have a good time. And I would look them right in the eye when I would tell them this. And just the difference in tone of voice, the little bit different volume, let people know that we're not messing around. We're not doing anything. My eyes are on you. And I would do that as well. I might tease somebody, yeah, okay, I know why you're here. And I could joke that way with somebody, and at the same time, it was letting them know, I really am watching you. Knock it off. Keep it appropriate. Keep it right. Just little tricks. Keep a smile on your face. Address the whole line with authority, or in a joking manner, I know what you're after, don't you dare. and people would realize, oh yeah, they're on to me, okay, I won't do that. So just little tricks, different ways that face characters were different than fur characters. So did that answer some of your questions as well as a little bit other information? I hope so. As you can tell, I'm on the road. I'm at my friend's house. That's why the video is a little bit different. So no intro, no closer this week. Yeah, and I actually missed my confessions last week, so I'm a couple of days behind. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I want to say thank you so much to all my patrons, my supporters. We've been down at Dragon Con this last week, having a good time. Getting ready to go home tomorrow, which is when this video will actually post. But thank you to my patrons and supporters for making stuff like this possible. Thank you to my friend for bringing us down. We've had a great time. Thank you so incredibly much for watching. God bless.